Good morning, everyone, and happy St. Patrick's Day. My name is Shannon White. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for KICA. It is my pleasure today to welcome you to KICA's annual meeting for the membership. Today's meeting is being attended by our members both here in the room, and we have members joining us via Zoom today. Thank you for taking your time out of your schedule to join us today. I now have the pleasure of introducing you to the KICA Board of Directors. When introduced, if our directors would be so kind as to raise their hands to say hello. Your chair, Jerry McGee. Your vice chair, Beth Zampino. And Beth is joining us today from New Jersey, where she's assisting her son post-surgery. Treasurer, Lisa Mascolo. Secretary, Brad McIlvain. And Brad will be completing his 3-year term today. Director, Alex Fernandez. Director, David DiStefano. And our developer director, Amanda Mole. I'd also like to take a moment to welcome our director-elect, Kevin Donlin, who's seated in the front today. At this time, I'll turn the meeting over to Jerry McGee in order to call the meeting to order.
Good morning, everybody. Those of you in the audience, those of you online, I would like to call the meeting to order now. We have a parliamentarian here today, Jim Clement of Walker Gazette and Linton. Jim, if you would please stand for a moment.
Did he get in here?
Is he even here? Entonces? Okay, well, I guess our parliamentarian did not show.
Well, we saved some money.
He didn't realize how far Kiowa was.
Or he didn't. But as Alex pointed out, we saved some money. Okay, so our parliamentarian is not here, so I will jump in and be that person, inept though I may be. We want to approve the minutes from last year's annual meeting held on Friday. The meeting minutes are in a verbatim transcript, which is online and were taken by a court reporter. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes as written?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion of those minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
All right, so the minutes from last year are approved. Shannon will now provide the certification of quorum and to explain the election voting process, which is complicated.
In order to hold the meeting today, we needed 51% member participation by proxy. Proxies were assigned by 55.8% of our voters. Proxies are for attendance only and cannot be used to vote on any other matter today. Voting ended at 12 p.m. on Thursday, February the 16th. We had 56.1% of total votes cast in the director election. Votes were cast electronically, by mail, and by phone. The election was certified by our third-party voting service, votenow.com. Kevin Donlin was elected to the KICA board as part of this process. Congratulations, sir. At the conclusion of this meeting, Brad will step down from the board and Kevin will be seated on the board. As many of you know, achieving quorum is often difficult for us. It was made a bit more challenging this year as it was an uncontested election. Aside from the many reminders that we send to you all about participating, we also offer a $500 award. The name was randomly selected from those members who participated in this year's voting by our third-party voting service. I have to say I've done this for many years, and I usually do not know the member who wins the $500 award. However, today is an exception. I'm pleased to announce that this year's winner is Mr. and Mrs. Todd Boney, owners of 3532 Shipwatch Road in Seascape Villas. Is Todd here today?
There you go.
No, okay. Well, we will let Todd know that he has won. I have his check here, and we will get that to him. Thank you to everyone who participated by voting in this year's election. One other business item is related to the number required for a petition of the membership to compel a referendum related to a specific board action. In 2022, the board aligned this number with our voting numbers at the most recent director election. For our members present, the required petition number would be similar to the voting process you are already familiar with. One member may sign a petition per property. Each improved property counts for 2, and an unimproved property counts for 1. For record, the total number of votes from this year's director election that were available was 9,443. The number will be in effect until next year's annual meeting, when the number is reported again. Now I'd like to turn the meeting back over to Jerry for his chair's report.
Thank you, Shannon. And again, good morning, everybody. It's a fine day. I thought of talking to you like this, but I won't. I did wear the green, so that's my homage, Erin Gobra. So enough of that. This is probably one of the most interesting times, I think, to be on this island because of the things that are facing us. And they are challenges, but they are things that we're going to work out together and do together. First thing I wanted to address was the Sandcastle. The Sandcastle Committee worked over about 2 years. There was a member survey, there was a town meeting, there were emails, and a number of attempts to reach out to the community. It pointed out one thing: we need a new communications plan, because there were so many folks that didn't get a chance to weigh in or said that they didn't. So we're going to do this. There were some wonderful suggestions that were put forward and some things to ponder about the Sandcastle. I think it's a major passion point for this community. And so what we're going to do is we're going to revisit this with the Sandcastle Committee. We're going to take all the comments that have made by email, and there were many, many, many of them. It was a wave of people who weren't engaged and suddenly were when they saw what, the details might have been. So, as we always said, it's a fluid situation, and we're going to make sure that the Sandcastle Committee gets a chance to consider those comments and come up with a new plan. So that is that. The ARB, another hot button issue. Brad Belt from the town of Kiowa, councilman, has suggested that KICA and the town work together to see what avenues forward in terms of hopefully getting the ARB transitioned to a different place. And I think those conversations will be positive. And I thank Brad and Kevin Donlan, who's going to work with Brad on that for taking on that job. Thank you, Brad, very much. Very important. The Governance Committee. As you know, Brad McIlvaine and that team have worked very, very hard. We've had 2 terrific meetings so far, and it would be unfair if Brad weren't to continue on that committee because he's been dedicated and worked so hard on it. So he will remain on that committee, and again, Kevin Donlan is going to be the board representative on that committee. We're going to make sure if there's ever anything that's going to have an enduring effect on this island, it is the governance and the rewrite of the bylaws. So we want to get it right. We want to hear all the opinions. And I know Brad and Kevin will work together with a committee to make sure we get a good outcome. E-bikes. Talk about an issue I don't want anything to do with, so Dave DeStefano is going to take care of that. But he has already done an awful lot of work on this issue, and we are going to be gathering everybody's opinions, and there were many, many of them in emails, and so we're well aware of what the pros and the cons are, and we will try to come up with something that is a solution, and we won't run away from that. And I think that pretty much sums up what I wanted to say to you. I'm going to say something that isn't on my script, but I view the fact that I am the chair in my last year, and my job is going to be to make progress and to listen to everybody, to not have factions, and to make sure that this community gets the representation it deserves. It's so hard to sometimes juggle these issues and to make everybody happy, but I'm going to do my best. I'm going to try to listen, I'm going to try to adapt, and I'm going to try to come forth with a collegial group that solves the problems and does not make the board interaction the problem. That's as candid as I can be, and I will take it on my chin. If I fail at that, then you can point a finger at one guy, and that's Jerry McGee. Okay, I think we're going to move on now, and we are going to have, what is the next fabulous? Yes. Now I wanted to say something to Brad. Brad and I have gone at it. We have gone like that, and if anybody would deny that, they'd be crazy. Where does Brad come from? He comes from passion. He cares deeply about this island. And even though he and I may have our tussles, nonetheless, I never felt that anybody's heart was in the wrong place. He has served us well. He has chaired the governance committee and done many other things. And I will say to you very much, sir, I appreciate your service. I appreciate your passion and dedication. You're going to keep on working with us on the governance committee, which I think is a wonderful thing. This is a small token of our gratification for you and Maura. I hope you enjoy it.
As a lawyer, I'm used to a podium, so just forgive me, I'm going to go to a podium. But thank you, Jerry. Thank you for those kind words. Yes, we've gone at it, but we have been passionate. And passion, I think, is a good thing. Passion about this island is something that's very important. It's something I will be talking about. One thing is the last official thing I want to talk about is as far as the governance task force. As you may know, the board went out for an independent review. We did get the results of that review on Wednesday. The task force met yesterday and went through it. The good news is I can report to you is there are no significant issues, so hopefully we're going to be able to move forward with that, in an expedited manner. 3.5 years ago, I came before you to ask for your vote. I did not take a typical path. In my dealings with KICA and observations by attending board meetings, I believe KICA and the board had grown disconnected from the community they serve. I said things need to change. Because I was running as an outsider, I did not go through the nominating committee, even though a former board chair told me I was wasting my time. He had a point. As long as the nominating committee had existed, no candidate had won who had not been recommended by the committee. My message of change resonated. Despite the odds, I ended up getting more votes than the other two highly recommended candidates got combined. A then KICA board member in their first year on the board wrote me shortly after the election, "What does that tell you? Change. People want it, and that's why they voted for you." And the change began. The first change to occur was the elimination of the nominating committee, allowing all members to run in an open election without the influence of a small group of people. One of the best things about Kiowa is its residents who love this island we share. As a KICA board member, I had the pleasure to meet and interact with a large number of you. I also got to know two other board members, David DeStefano and Alex Fernandez, who shared a belief that KICA needed to do better. We believed KICA needed to listen to its members and operate in an open and professional manner. David was a kindred spirit in that we were both lawyers trained as mechanical engineers. Alex had a highly successful career overseeing AIG's operations in South America and Europe. The board has definitely had its stumbles. Some have characterized the efforts of the three of us in negative terms, but personally, I remain proud to have worked with them to accomplish major improvements for KICA. In addition to the elimination of the nominating committee, we were driving forces behind establishing the Community Outreach Committee, which held town halls with our members to understand their concerns and wishes. Bringing back committees and task forces to provide members the opportunity to influence their own community. Heating the family and adult pools. Replacement, I know, Carol. an issue near and dear to your heart. Replacement of nearly a quarter of our roads and establishing quantitative standards for replacement to keep our roads in the condition befitting our island. Replacement and widening of the bike path for more than 4 miles from the first gate to the first Flyway Drive intersection. Insisting that the board take action through formal votes, eliminating the informal, confusing actions of prior boards. Pushing for more open meetings so that our members could better understand how the board operated. Improving KICA's budgeting process by, among other things, insisting that KICA budget to actual revenues and expenses as opposed to prior budgets. Improving financial transparency so that members can better understand KICA's finances and accumulated surpluses. Making sure KICA observes good financial practices by replacing the long-term auditors. Pushing management to creatively deal with staffing issues instead of just talking about them, actually trying to solve them. And we've seen the results of that this past year. And as Jerry mentioned, overseeing a comprehensive rewrite of our bylaws to bring us into compliance with South Carolina law and best practices. A byproduct of these changes was increased community engagement. I don't think it's an overstatement to say that these past 3 years have been the most productive 3-year period ever for the KICA board. As we know, change can be hard, and clearly some did not embrace it. We also had division and rancor on the board, yet despite that division, we succeeded. That is looking at the past, but where do we go from here? I have often stated, KICA is a customer service organization and our members are our customers. KICA's job is to serve those members efficiently and effectively. It also must communicate timely, accurately, and respectfully with our members. Our members should expect nothing less than excellent service to maintain our beautiful island and its infrastructure. It is important that the board and staff work seamlessly to make sure that happens. Far too often, it seems that some are more interested in defining job descriptions than working as a team to get the best results. It is not improper for board members to ask questions and express concerns. Indeed, that is what is required for a board member to perform his or her fiduciary duties. The board and staff are all on the same team, and they all wear the KICA team jersey. The board and staff need to respect and listen to KICA members. Both board and staff work for the members, all members, not just a select few. As Michael Conley's fictional detective Harry Bosch often says, everybody counts or nobody counts. We've recently seen board member derogatory references to KICA members. Unfortunately, that is not the first time some board members have demeaned our members. It has gone on for years. In the year before I joined the board, I attended a number of board meetings. There were a number of members who would come to each board meeting and ask the board to heat the adult pool. They were ignored. When I joined the board, I learned there was no reason to deny their request. KICA had the funds and the work was not difficult to perform. I have no idea why the answer was always no to make our amenities better. We often hear that the partners and the resort are important members, and indeed they are. However, it is critical to recognize that the biggest developer on our island is our individual homeowners members. We currently have over 180 houses under construction, plus significant renovation work. Conservatively, that is more than $300 million in ongoing construction. It is necessary that existing and future members continue to invest in this island through new construction and renovation. To do that, we need clear design standards, uniformly and transparently applied. Otherwise, we just create barriers to member investment, and those barriers harm us all. We need to find a workable solution, and hopefully this task force will help do that, because there seems to be wide agreement that what we have now isn't working. I've talked about what the board and staff need to do, but it's just not up to the board and staff. It's up to all of us as members. I can't tell you how many times I've heard someone should do something. The problem is the person saying it often believes that someone is not them. I have always adhered to the simple two-letter statement, if it is to be, it is up to me. This is your island. If you want something to happen, don't wait for someone else. Get involved. Finally, we need to stop shooting the messenger. Real discussions involving people with differing viewpoints lead to better decisions. We are blessed to live in an idyllic place. KICA invokes strong passions, but we can't lose sight that there may be two or more ways to look at an issue. In my view, for many years, KICA was run by a small group of people. Some got used to that. They chafe when others gain a say. We are no longer a developer-controlled association. We are and should be a community association and need to reflect the differing views of our community. I will no longer be on the board, but I plan on staying involved and expressing my views. I'm not going anywhere. Let us all work together. We have made tremendous progress in the past 3 years. We can't afford to lose that. But I do want to thank you for the opportunity to serve you. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. Appreciate your service, and I'm sure you will still be a voice in the community. I have no doubt about that. Okay.
Jerry,
Oh,
may I?
absolutely, you may.
I'd like to make a comment. I've had the opportunity to serve on many profit, nonprofit boards, small companies, big companies, family companies. And I came to the conclusion, or I've come to the conclusion, that there are 3 different types of directors that I have found during my experiences on these boards. The first type of director, I found that they come to the meeting, collect their fee, in some cases, not in this case, obviously, and they vote, but not much more than that. The second group is a group that does a lot of talking. They talk a lot, they write a lot, but at the end of their tenure, they have very little to show that they've accomplished. And then the minority group, the smallest group, is that group that I believe Brad falls into. And it's that director that prepares for the meeting, reads the material, brings good recommendations, suggestions, participates actively with its stakeholders, the community. That's the category that Brad falls into. And Brad, for myself, I want to thank you. I know that KICA thanks you. I know that I'm going to miss you. And I know that KICA is going to miss you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Alex. I will miss working with everyone.
Okay. Any other board members have any comments about all of that?
I would just like to say, I don't want to belabor this. I think very nice things have been said about Brad. I gave a little speech at Friday's meeting, or our last board meeting earlier this week, and I echo what Alex said. Brad participated to get things done, not just to be there.
Thank you. And again, thank you, Brad. And now I think if there are no other comments, we will move on to the next item, which is the financial report from Lisa Masculo and Dale Schoon, our new Director of Finance.
Great, thank you. Let me give my thanks to the Finance Committee, some of whom are in the room, and to Alex. I think the work that the Finance Committee, and I'll talk a little bit about that, I think the work that the Finance Committee under Alex's leadership in 2022 did was really impactful, important work. My thanks to Dale and the team for the work that they did. Dale is now just passed his first-year anniversary, and hopefully it was a great first year, and it'll be even better going forward. You see the members of the Finance Committee here on the slide in front of you. So I'll talk about three things. First, some of the accomplishments of the Finance team and the Finance Committee. Talk a little bit about the KICA's financial health, and then take a little bit of a look at our 2023 Finance Committee priorities. That's independent of who the treasurer is. Currently, I'm the interim treasurer, I think, as we all know. So in terms of accomplishments, as I said, Dale made the scene last February and really did a lot of work to make sure that the finance department was staffed with the most qualified, capable people. And I think that the team has done a really nice job. And just in the last couple of weeks that I've worked with the team, I know that to be the case. So thank you again. One of the things that Dale and the team did was to implement a cash investment strategy, including sweeps. So we're making certain that we take full advantage of the market so we get the most bang for our buck. One of the things that certainly people have asked us about and we did spend some time on the Financial Controls Manual in 21 and put that into effect in 22, is how often do we rebid certain contracts? And one of the things we said in the Financial Controls Manual is that we should rebid every 3 years on certain contracts, and in no cases longer than 5 years. So one of the things that the team, Finance Committee, and Dale's team did over the course of 22 was to rebid the investment advisor, and we transitioned from Mineta, who was our prior investment advisor, to Cook Street. That transition happened over the end of 2022 into the beginning of 23. And again, I think the work that the Finance Committee did, I was not directly involved since I was not on the Finance Committee at that point. But I think the work that the committee did to appropriately go out to bid and evaluate the respondents to that RFP was really important. Finance Committee met, I think it's just 2 weeks ago, with the new investment advisor, Cook Street. I think we had a great conversation, and it's the beginning of an important relationship. They're very interested in participating with us, and I think it's going to be a good relationship. The Finance Committee, again, under Alex's leadership and Dale's stewardship as the CFO for the organization, spent a lot of time looking at the budget process, and I think the work that they did over the course of the year to make sure the process is as transparent. We talk a lot about transparency. I think we've gone a long way in the budget process to making it more transparent. I mentioned the Financial Controls Manual. I was on the Finance Committee when we updated the FCM. It ultimately got accepted by the board, I think in March or May of 22 last year. So that is the new version that is in place. That is a thing that I think we're going to, and I'll talk a little bit about what the Finance Committee has said the priorities might be in 23. I think we're probably going to revisit some of the components of the FCM and figure out if there's some tightening up that's required. We also had our audit of 2022. Again, new auditors, although they did the 21 audit, they were just in place at the beginning of 2022. They've just completed the 2022 audit and produced an unmodified opinion, which is to say a clean opinion. And that also, to me, seems like a good relationship. They are called Keefe McCullough. That was an open bid process. Finance Committee went out to bid, reviewed the proposals that came in, picked Keefe McCullough. And my view is, based on what we saw the other day from Keefe McCullough, they're doing a fine job. I think the other thing that we really need to work on, and Jerry alluded to this, is we need to get better at some communications. A lot of questions and things come in, and I'm speaking strictly in the context of the Finance Committee at the moment. We get a lot of questions. We don't always track all those questions, so one of the things we've just implemented is a tracker, both for the members of the Finance Committee and from things that come into the Finance Committee. So we actually keep track of, who said what, who requested what, what's the current disposition, when it's going to get closed. So I think that's an improvement going forward. In terms of our KICA financial condition, if you were at the board meeting on Monday, you heard our discussion of the audited financials. As I said, it was a clean opinion produced by Keefe McCullough, and we have a strong balance sheet at this point. somewhere north of $26 million in total assets. That's important, obviously. And we did create, I'm looking at Dale, or did we post the liquidity sheet yet?
If it's not, it will be today.
Okay, great. So one of the things that the Finance Committee worked on pretty extensively over the course of '22 was a liquidity, where's the cash statement. And I think all the members of the Finance Committee would agree that it was a process. And I think where we are now is a pretty good statement with respect to the liquidity position of the organization at a point in time. So when you look at that sheet, and to Dale's point, it's either up there now or will be up there shortly. It is up, great. I think it's worth taking a look at. We'll continue to refine it. I think in its current state, we got pretty good agreement across the Finance Committee that it fairly represents our position, again, at a point in time. A lot of people are clearly interested, maybe nervous about what's gone on with respect to banking. We have no exposure to SVB or Silvergate or any of the other things that are currently in the news. That's a good thing. And like many individuals and many organizations, we've got significant unrealized losses over the course of '22 as a result of the economic conditions. I think the Finance Committee and Dale and all of us believe that we're well positioned for when the market turns around. Reserve funding is always a hot topic, as well it should be. We are funded at 55%. There's a lot of nuances to that. Understand that what's in the reserve fund is 100% restricted. It can only be used for major repairs and replacements. It can't be used for anything else. We will have, and that 55%, I should say, is based on the reserve study that was produced last year. We are soon to meet with the reserve study specialist again and reevaluate where we are. And I think it will be a conversation, right? Should we be at 55%? Should we be, I don't know, closer to 65%? That is a subject that the Finance Committee needs to take up. It obviously ultimately has downstream implications for all of us as members. And we will review that report at the end of March. From a 2023 budget perspective, the board did approve about an $850,000 operating deficit. And over the course of the process as we go through '23, regardless of who the treasurer is, I think one of the things we need to look at is what should our philosophical approach to budgeting be, whether that's a zero-based budget. I think that's a thing that the Finance Committee needs to take up. And we are on track with respect to CTR. You may know that in terms of revenue, we take in about $19 million a year in revenue. 65-ish% of that is as a result of assessment. The rest is from CTR. When I think about 2023, and again, regardless of who is the treasurer in '23, we did have a conversation among the members of the Finance Committee about what some of the priorities should be, and we've got again, a tracker for that stuff. This list is not exhaustive, but it is a short list of some of the major things that the Finance Committee thinks we probably ought to take a look at. Even though we revisited the investment policy last summer, in light of current conditions, it probably makes sense to do that again. I alluded to the MR&R reserve funding level, currently at 55%. I think we need to understand what the implications of that are in the event of a major event, and what the members' perspective is on that. And we'll certainly, my expectation will be the Finance Committee will be asking you all for some perspective on that over time. We're going to take a look at, again, the Financial Controls Manual was updated, adopted last year. I think there are some things that require an additional look in the Financial Controls Manual, and we ought to look at the internal controls environment. And we continue to work hard to refine what we produce. We've got lots of opinions on that. Some people say, well, everybody should look at every detail. There's plenty of members who aren't interested in looking at every detail. So we continue to refine what we think is the best sort of public reporting package. You can always go to all of the details, but we'll continue to look at that. Mr. Chairman, that's my report.
All right. Thank you very much, Lisa. Appreciate that. And Alex, thank you. And next is Shannon with our COO report.
Good morning again. So 2022 was a busy year for our staff team again. Outside of the finance department changes and the financial initiatives that you just heard about, our staff was busy in many other areas. They are too many to name, but here are some highlights. Related to our responsibilities in maintaining the island, we managed one of the largest reserve infrastructure project lists we've had at approximately $8 million last year. This included approximately $3.5 million in road resurfacing, which accounted for 26% of our roadways. We also installed our first electronic gate for control of our second largest drainage basin, the Beachwalker Basin, which manages drainage for the western side of the island. Following a few supply chain delays, we are currently completing the second of these electronic gates for control of our largest drainage basin, which is the Canvasback Drainage Basin. These electronic gates will help us to manage these significant drainage basins, which control about 70% of the water, more effectively, both in routine operations, but more importantly, in emergency storm operations. We also completed flood management projects at Seamarsh and the intersection of Key Island Parkway and Green Dolphin Way. We are just finishing up now the project at Governor's at Turtle Point Maintenance, and I cannot wait to see this one in action at the next high tide. We have also installed the gate to stop drainage back up into the V-Gate intersection. In security, we continue to work on compliance, whether this is lowering speeds and contracting for speed enforcement with CCSO, or enhancing our own security patrol operations. In the summer of 2022, our covenant violations increased by 21% over the previous year. We began distributing a flyer from the main gate specific to short-term renters and the rules and regulations which impact them directly. In our active alligator season, we're also producing things going out through the main gate related to personal safety and respecting our wildlife here on the island. Our team continues to care for the 60 miles of road rights-of-way, 118 cul-de-sacs, and 122 ponds across the island. As was alluded to by Brad, construction has been hopping on the island, and believe it or not, we're currently at 200 open new home construction permits on the island. This is the highest we have ever had. Of course, our staff loves to welcome you to this facility. In 2022, we had 93,000 check-ins to the Sandcastle facility. We were the event venue for 83 private member events in this ballroom that we're sitting in now, and we are also home to 16 community clubs or groups, as well as frequent meeting location for regimes and/or the Conservancy. Our communications team was busy talking with all of you in 2022 through 106 email communications, 157 Facebook posts, 28 YouTube videos, and 3 pulse polls of the membership. We also had 68,000 visits to our website, the majority of these which were directed through our weekly communications with you. In mid to late April of this year, all members will be receiving KICA's member survey. Conducted every 2 years, it is our opportunity to hear from you about a variety of issues. In 21, we had 3,100 members participate in that survey. We hope to do the same or better this year, so look for that in April. The other area we concentrated heavily on in 2022 was in recruitment and retention of our staff, which Brad alluded to. As KICA is a service organization and 60% of our budget is dedicated to payroll, this is key for us. Through the commitment of the KICA Board of Directors, as well as all of you, we made positive strides in both recruitment and retention in 2022. Our retention rates have improved overall, as well as individually in our 2 largest departments, land and security. While they will hate that I'm about to point them out, here today with us is your staff leadership team from KICA, all of our department directors, if they would please stand. We have a strong and talented staff leadership team. It is my privilege to work with each and every one of them. Our staff is committed to the service of our membership, as Brad stated, our service to you. In my role as COO, I have the privilege of working with many of our company's volunteers. Most notable are our current board members, who are seated in front of you. Board service is a big time commitment. Alex joked that our 990 said that board service was only 2 hours. He said that's not true. It's not true. It often takes a lot of work for them to become familiar with the various topics which come before them. I have been here for many years, and I have worked with and gotten to know many KICA board members during that time. Do we have any former KICA board members here today? If so, would you please stand? Two. Thank you for the service that you gave to this community. Helen Keller said, "Alone we can do so little, and together we can do so much." KICA works with so many talented volunteers. We have numerous committees and task forces, as well as other volunteer interactions, and these include the following: the Finance Committee, the Human Resources Committee, Board Outreach and Education Committee, Amenities Task Force, Security Task Force, Governance Task Force, our Sandcastle User Group, our World Volunteers, Garden Club volunteers who work in our greenhouse, Sandcastle Library volunteers, and our newest partnership with the volunteers from POPs, or Property Owner Parties. If you are currently one of our volunteers in these groups, would you please stand so we may thank you? Volunteers are the heart of a community. It is said that volunteers do not necessarily have the time. They just have the heart. So thank you for your time, your dedication, your service, and your heart for this community. This concludes my remarks. Thank you.
Shannon, before we move on to the next item, I wanted you all to know that we celebrate 25-year anniversaries here, and this year Shannon has been with us for 25 years. So.
I would like to point out that I'm a little bit of a control freak, and I wrote the script today, and that was not in it.
No, it wasn't.
No, it wasn't. So I'm guessing my HR director, Sarah Bond, is getting fired later. True? Maybe.
No, no comment. The members will comment.
Okay. All right, so we're going to move into member comment session. Today, member comments will be received live here in the room and via Zoom. All comments are advisory in nature to the board. We will start with comments in the room first. If you have a comment to make in the room, please raise your hand and a mic will be brought to you. If you are joining us via Zoom today, please raise your hand on Zoom. My executive assistant, Ellen, who you are familiar with, is handling our participants via Zoom today and will call on you by name to make your comments. For the record and the sake of our court reporter here today, please state your name and your Kiowa property address before making your comments. So that we may hear from as many members as possible, please try to limit your comments to 2 to 3 minutes. Are there any comments first in the room? Please raise your hand. Hayes is coming to you, sir.
My name is Rob Glass, 4682 Tennis Club Villas. I don't want to make this meeting longer than it should be, so I want to make a very quick comment. I just suggest that maybe one of the board members be a part of the Sandcastle user group moving forward. Seems like that is the case in every other user group, and our intention there should be to represent all the owners. The group has done a wonderful job, magnificent, but I think we need to look at things, and maybe a board member should be a participant and part of that group. Thank you.
Could I respond to that, Shannon?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Glass. I think Mr. DiStefano is going to respond
Just to let you know, I did attend the last Sandcastle user group, And my intention is, and we'll be discussing this later, to continue doing that, and probably looking at combining amenities in Sandcastle, because they're all amenities, with a board member part of that group. I agree that for whatever reason, there was never a board member as part of that group.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments in the room? Please raise your hand. There's one down here and one in the back. Gentleman in the back?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Steve Hograve. I live at 77 Peppervine Inlet Cove. And I just want to support moving the ARB, Keel Island ARB, from the resort's purview over to KICA. I think it's a normal transition. I hope the board votes positively on that. I know you said you're studying it, but I want to strongly encourage you to bring that under KICA's purview. I think it's long overdue, so I just want to point that out, please.
Thank you, sir.
Just to clarify, sir, we do not right now have the power to just take over the ARB. It's a negotiation, and we are earnestly pursuing that with the partners. We're working, as I alluded, in a joint group task force with Brad Belt, who's a councilman for the town of Kiowa, and with Kevin Donlin, who will be a new board member. So we are in pursuit of that issue. We understand very much that the community wishes where it reside, and we'll be working toward that end. So thank you. No, that's okay. I appreciate I think many people feel the same as you do. So we will be pursuing it.
Just as a clarification, you mentioned the resort. It's not the resort, it's the partners. Thank you.
And Hayes, I believe there was a comment down here. He's coming to you, ma'am.
Mary Ann Ashton, 126 Conifer. I think it's essential in a membership organization that the board be accountable and transparent to its members. And I'd specifically like to talk today about communications. I was glad to hear both the chair and the treasurer talk about communications in their comments. I feel like the staff-led communications have been wonderful, and I don't want anyone to think that I am commenting on or critiquing the staff-led communications. I think they're excellent. But that does not absolve the board from its own need to communicate directly with members. And it's been disappointing as I think about it, how many of you sitting up here ran as candidates on we need to improve communications, and yet the most notable communications in the last several years have come from directors who are dissenting from a majority opinion. And when I've gotten those dissenting opinions, it's helped me understand what it was that the board was grappling with and why that was important. I really wish that I would hear on a more regular basis from the majority of the board who communicates what they're thinking about. And my suggestion would be that you consider a monthly communication either before the board meeting with a heads up about what's on the agenda and how you can be more informed about it, or secondly, if you don't like that idea, follow up after the board meeting and say, here are the important things we talked about. And I think those need to look different than the staff-led communications. I think you've heard a lot of feedback on the Sandcastle user stuff, that people just read over the emails, and I think there's a value to communications that come in different forms and look different because people will pick them up in different ways. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ashton.
Thank you very much, and we are going to very carefully look at our communications, which we have had experience with. And I thank you. I would encourage all of you, if you have thoughts and ideas about our communications and how they might be better, because everyone now communicates very differently. Some people are Luddites in terms of technology and you know, only want to receive mail. Some people are deep into technology. So the way in which we communicate to you and what we do is very important. But as Brad said before, we're a member service organization, and if the members give us ideas and not you know, not just saying, gee, it could be better, we would really appreciate it, because that will help us understand your needs.
Hayes, Mr. Hennessy.
My name is Paul Hennessy. I live at 12 Blue Heron Pond Road. Just a couple of things. A suggestion for the board, the new board, to consider. It's a suggestion that I made last year, but I'd make it again today. One of the things that the board does that I think is very important, it constitutes community outreach and involvement of the members. It formulates both committees and task forces. And in addition to staff and the board, these committees and task forces do a lot of work. What I think would be happy is to respect the work that they do and give each of the committee and task forces an opportunity to provide the equivalent of an annual report. Here's what we did, here are the things we're working on, here are the priorities that we recommend continue in the next year, if any. I think it would be very helpful to have, whether it's the HR committee or the amenities committee or security or whatever, okay, where are we? What analysis have we done? What issues have we tackled? What decisions have we made? What's pending? I think would be very helpful for the community to understand. The second thing is just an observation. Jerry, in your opening comments, you talked about a number of things that we are going to continue to look at. I think it's important to recognize that in addition to listening, thinking, working, reading, deliberating, the board also has a responsibility to decide. Now, I wasn't personally involved in the amenities and sandcastle deliberations, but I did observe carefully, frequently in person, and I can't imagine any process in KICA that was more openly discussed, communicated, member comments. I don't know how many people were on the task force, but there were a lot. And at some point, I think the board just has to decide that there are difficult decisions to make. Not everyone is going to be pleased about everything. And don't be afraid to decide. I'm not picking on the sandcastle in particular, but just in general, there are going to be decisions that are going to be difficult. Not everyone is always going to agree with the decision, but I think there comes a point in the governance of our island that decisions, thoughtful decisions, well-considered decisions have to be made as opposed to just dragging issues on and on indefinitely. So just two suggestions for the new board to consider. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Paul.
Can I just respond real quick, Paul? If the bylaws and the governance procedure manual goes through, the governance procedure manual has a requirement that all committees and task forces report quarterly in public meetings at the board. So hopefully that will address at least some of your concern.
Hayes is coming to you.
Maura McIlvain, 146 Blue Heron Pond Road. Jerry, I just wanted to address your phrasing that you can't just grab the ARB away from the partners. As Todd Bonet has stood up for 6 months and told you, the ARB does not have the powers it's currently exercising. In fact, KICA is supposed to have an ARB for its own community property. So when you go into this, and I know you will, and I know Brad Belt is very familiar with all these issues, but I want the community to understand there are parts of the ARB that should already be in KICA.
Thank you, Maura. Anyone else in the room? Ellen, do you have questions? Oh, I'm sorry. Hi, Jim.
Hi, Shannon. First, I just want to thank the board and the staff for your service to our community through what has certainly been a very challenging year and 3 years. And in particular, of course, I want to thank Brad, who I've had the opportunity to work with on the governance task force the past year. And I think Brad has set a good standard for 3 different elements, which is what's needed to be, in my opinion, a good director, which is that he's very hardworking. He believes in following rules and regulations, and he believes in open communications with the members. And I think that those are 3 very basic things. Brad really was, and Dave a year before him, and Alex has come on, and is really focused on having the nerve, which was really asked him before, to ask the question, why? It's very simple. Why? And too often, what's happened is when the question why has been asked, and this continues now, the response has not been to answer the why, but to say, we don't like how the question was asked. It was the how it was asked, not providing the answer, to deflect answering what the question why was. And we have lots of why questions right now that the community deserves answers to. And I just hope the board will dedicate itself to rather than deflecting the questions about why, to answer the tough questions, as Paul just said, and not to, and to get past this how issue, how the questions were asked. And I think that would be a big step forward. And the same for the community. The community needs to get past this how. It needs to be answering the whys, not the how the question was asked. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Jim.
Let's try one more time. Anyone else in the room? Okay, Ellen, do you have people online?
Shannon, there is no raised hand online.
All right. One more time in the room? Nope. Jerry, back to you.
All right. Thank you for your comments. They are not lost on us. We have some challenges, and it will be up to me, and you can point your finger at me if we don't make these things better and improve them. And I welcome your input. I've called many of you back. I'm planning on having an open meeting maybe once a month where you can come in and we'll all sit down. No one will be on a raised platform, and we can debate some of these issues. And so I'm not going to be afraid of that. I'm not afraid to make tough calls. I've made some very tough calls in my life, and I will continue to do that. So thank you for your comments. Thank you, everybody online, for attending. At this point, I need a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned.
We ask that the audience please remain in place for another few minutes. The KICA board is going to move immediately into the first meeting of the new board so that they may elect board officer positions and handle 2 other quick business items, which Jerry's already alluded to. Thank you. Sir?
All right, I'm going to call this meeting to order. And our first order of business is going to be the election of the 2023 board officers. So I'm going to, last year we elected a slate, and that was very unpopular and a lot of criticism. So this year we're going to vote by title. So that everybody gets a chance and there's not a sweeping predetermined, excuse me, whoa. I lean forward in this chair isn't very stable. Okay.
Wait a minute, you said this chair isn't very stable?
I said the chair is not very stable. Passionate, but not stable. But dedicated, I promise you. Okay. So the first officer we will begin with will be the vice chair. Do I have any nominations for a vice chair?
I think of all of the things that we've been, doing and thinking about, to me, Beth's done a great job. Thank you, Beth. I think Beth's done a great job as vice chair, so I would nominate Beth as vice chair.
All right. Do I have a second for that?
I'll second.
All right, so we have one. Are there any other nominations for vice chair? All right, so can I have a motion to approve Beth Zampino as our vice chair?
I make the motion that we vote Beth as the vice chair.
A second?
I'll second.
Okay, so all in favor of Beth Zampino being our vice chair?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Congratulations, Beth. You are the new vice chair, and we will work together. I'd like to thank you for that vote, everybody. Beth and I worked very well together, and we'll continue to do a better job for you. Okay, so the next is for treasurer. And do I have a motion for treasurer? I will move that Lisa Masculo be treasurer. Do I have a second?
I think Beth's trying to second.
Beth is trying to second. All right, so Beth online has second. Do I have any other nominations for treasurer?
You'll have discussion about the,
Yes, we
Okay.
can have a discussion, yes.
okay.
Go ahead, Alex. Did
May
you
I?
want to?
Oh,
Yes,
yes.
yes.
When I was a candidate to the board, I clearly stated that I would pursue transparency and disclosure in all association matters. I know I stated it with passion and without any hesitation. I didn't say, well, we should consider the situation, nor we need to give the board some room for those complex issues. Some candidates did take that position. When I was elected with a strong majority, 50% more votes than the second vote getter, my vote on the board became a threat to some, which generated the illegal move to increase the board and appoint 2 new board members. Nevertheless, I began to disclose many financial activities and information which have never been disclosed to our members. On several occasions, I was threatened not to do so, and there have been several attempts to discredit me personally. My passion and agitation have been evident in all I do, and more so when information is withheld from me, withheld from you, and I'm lied to. Some on the board call this improper board conduct. These same people vote to withhold information from a fellow board member, meet privately without any record of their meeting, characterize members for speaking up as haters, and more recently, by the way, another ex-board member characterized you as real jerks, and vote to disregard the membership when over 1,000 members sign a petition. Yes, they don't consider this improper board conduct. Now, we're considering naming a board member as treasurer that, in my opinion, has violated the Financial Controls Manual in the approval of a personal contract with KICA without the approval of the board, and we don't find this improper board conduct. I can only conclude that this is a cynical position and that KICA is far from being a transparent organization. This is why I will vote no to appoint Lisa Masculo as treasurer of KICA.
Any other comments? Okay. So can we have a vote for Lisa Masculo as our treasurer. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Is Beth? She's raising her hand. All right, then that, and
I
David,
abstain.
you wanted to say
I
something?
abstain on this vote.
And David is abstaining. All right, so Lisa, you are now treasurer. Congratulations. Our next position is secretary, and I would actually like.
I will nominate Dave DiStefano as secretary.
I'll second.
Okay, any other nominations for secretary? All right, all in favor of Dave DiStefano becoming our secretary? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right. So we now have a full slate of new officers. Congratulations, everybody. We look forward to working with you and making the progress that I think all of us here and the community is going to be looking very carefully at. As we announced before, we have a Town of Kiowa and KICA joint task force regarding the ARB. And we are going to have to approve someone to lead that group, and I would like to see if we have anybody who would like to do that. My preference would be that Kevin Donlin lead that group, but everyone else can certainly have anybody.
I so move.
All right.
Second.
Second. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Are we going to, are we going to talk about this or not now? I had a question.
No, go ahead.
So, here you go, Kevin. So I think it's important that when the joint task force meets, I don't know what the plan is to get input from the partners, to understand their perspective, but I would encourage, I suspect you already are, having those conversations as part of that process.
Haven't started yet, but we'll go as wide as possible. I think the goal of this task force is nothing more than to get everyone on the same page, literally. There's a lot of, when I was running, there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of misinformation, a lot of people with different ideas. I think the best thing we could do is start jointly. What's the history? Where are we today? And hopefully get some recommendations to move forward that both we and the town agree on. And yeah, I would think that we'd involve KDP, the resort, and anyone who wanted to talk about it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Kevin, or Mr. Chair? Oh, a comment?
Yes, go ahead.
I think the partner's position is clear. We heard it at the last board meeting. They have no intention of transitioning the ARB to KICA. That was stated openly, clearly. So let's start with that premise. It's not a thing of, having a discussion with them. They have stated publicly they have no intention of transferring the ARB to KICA. So we have, obviously, there's only another recourse for us to take.
Question, we had a document. I assume at some point we'll take draft off of that, make it public. And just so everyone knows, the idea is that there'll be 2 KICA board members, 2 council people from the town of Kiowa. We'll appoint several other people to be on the committee. So it'll be David DiStefano is going to work on it as well. And I think a total of 8 is what's envisioned right now.
I think one of the first things that we have to do on this task force is literally find out what our legal rights are, each entity. And from there, then we'd be able to address how we're going to negotiate with the partners on this matter.
Okay. Thank you very much, and I look forward to making progress on that. As announced before, Brad McIlvaine will continue on the governance task force. And thank you, Brad, not only for your leadership in getting us to this point, but for your continued service. We look forward to working with you. We will need a board representative to chair that committee. And I would like to nominate Kevin Donlin to be that person to work with Brad and the committee.
I'd move that. So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Second.
I second.
All in favor of? Say aye.
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 Kevin? Okay. There we go. We have a full slate of directors, we have a full slate of task force leaders, and a lot of work ahead of us. I thank you for attending. This does conclude our meeting. The next meeting will be Monday on April 10th at 1 p.m. And again, we welcome your input.
I move to adjourn.
Oh, yes, I do need a motion.
Second.
Second.
All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, the meeting is adjourned. Thank everybody.